The White House has created an FBI-led joint mission center that's dedicated to proactively hunting Americans suspected of domestic terrorism. You want to know what that is? The budget request reveals anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, support the overthrow of the United States government, extreme on migration, extremism on racism, extremism on gender, hostility towards those who traditional American views on family, hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on religion, and hostility towards those who hold traditional views on morality. Do I have your attention yet? Are you alarmed? This is what the budget request show right here. Domestic terrorists who are motivated at a range of ideologies and galvanized by recent political and social events in the United States pose an elevated threat to the homeland. What in the COINTELPRO 3.0? Domestic terrorists exploit a variety of popular social media platforms, smaller websites with targeted audiences, and encrypted chat applications. They use these platforms to recruit new adherents, plan and rally support for in-person reactions, and disseminate materials encouraging radicalization and mobilization to violence. Every accusation is a confession, and when they was accusing folks of going after them, that's what they were spewing up. In other words, if your political views are practically anything other than MAGA, you're on notice courtesy of the FBI. Education is elevation. Y'all stay vigilant out here. Me too, of course.
Shalom. I would like to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Bahashim, Rakakradash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to our sister Akim, pushing his word across the four corners of the world. And just another news update through the spirit, the power, and the vibration of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh. And as you can see within recent news, there's a lot of stuff going on, of course, and a lot of people upon social media uploading videos regarding this matter, how the FBI is doubling down its domestic terrorism agenda in the name of Trump's National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, or MSPM7. So within Trump's budget request to Congress, it contains the largest counterterrorism spending in years, and inside of it is a new FBI agenda that's dedicated to proactively hunt for Americans that the American government considers or classifies as DTs, or domestic terrorists. And they went into how domestic terrorists who are motivated by a range of ideologies and galvanized by recent political and societal events in the U.S. pose an elevated threat to the so-called homeland. And some of the key components is anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the U.S. government, extremism regarding race, gender, or migration, or hostility towards people that hold the American traditional values regarding family, religion, and morality. But from a spiritual perspective, we know what's going on because it links up with end-time biblical prophecies, and that's because the wicked, which represents Esau Edom, is being revealed. He's no longer controlling the narrative due to him being pointed out or accused. Everybody's starting to see who's problematic within the earth right now. And again, that's the tabernacle of Esau Edom via his main hub, America, or Babylon the Great. So now within these end times, the wicked is being revealed. So therefore, all the hidden things of Esau Edom is being searched out. Everybody's seeing his shame, his nakedness, and everything that they was doing or concealing within the darkness, within their secret councils, is now coming out to the light, coming out to the open or the forefront, which again makes the point the wicked is being revealed. And we know by default that Esau is now a person that accepts accountability. So therefore, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahushua is programming him to be like a madman where he's not going to spare any. And he's losing this narrative by being pointed out and everybody seeing who the problem of the earth is. So that's motivating him to come down with great wrath because he knows that he has but a short time. But ultimately, this all boils down to the ones who sincerely hold that testimony of Yahushua. Because according to this word or the volume of the book, that is how the wicked is being revealed. When you read 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, how the wicked is being revealed, again, Esau Edom, and how Yahushua should consume with the spirit of his mouth via his divine messengers who are the true servants, the prophets. And for the ones of us who sincerely and genuinely believe in that testimony of Yahushua, We have been cautioned or warned all over the years to expect these persecuting times that are coming, which means that you counted the cost. And that takes me to the book of Luke, chapter 14, verse 28. And it says, "For which of you intending to build a tower, sit it not down first and counted the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it?" So when you counted the cost, that means that you are carefully evaluating or judging the high risks or potential losses or your so-called personal desires, sacrifices, or consequences before you fully commit to something. And within this thing of ours, spiritually calculating and making the decision making to fully commit to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. And for us, the sincere ambassadors or followers of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, we stand in a great line of greatness and legacy of ancient prophets who went through the same thing. When you read the book of Mark, the first chapter, and when Yahweh Shai came to the men that was going to eventually follow him soon, and he prophesied unto them how they should be fishers of men, because a few of them were fishermen, and it went into how they straightway forsook their nets and followed Yahweh Shai. So again, we stand in a great line, a legacy of ancient prophets who put off that mortal clothing and forsook the current fashion of that world and followed Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. So how much more now at the very end? And that takes me to the book of Jeremiah 28 verse 8 within the NLT. And it says, "The ancient prophets who preceded you and me spoke against many nations, always warning of war, disaster, and disease." And when you are against something, that means that you are in opposition to. Or the other key word that the FBI is doubling down with its domestic terrorism agenda, anti, which means against. And they are using this word anti as a buzzword to create sensationalism. Because if you are practically a critical thinker and you're not aligned with the current political views or agendas, then automatically that makes you a target on the FBI domestic terrorism watch list. Because once you counted the cost through the spirit and you follow Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, that's making you a beacon of light. In other words, we have become a light into this world. And the people within this current fashion of the world, they are saturated in comfort to love darkness rather than light, which ultimately means that they're going to hate us because we ultimately represent the one that sent us, which is Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, and especially the authority figures of this world, because his testimony of Yahweh Shai, again, the volume of the book, is associated with the end of Esau's world. So here comes the accuser of our brother with his various devious tactics of persecution. And that takes me to this article from Zateo.com. And the title says, "Trump's new Red Scare is coming to state and local police near you." And this article was published on April the 7th, 2026. So here's that phrase right there, Trump's new Red Scare. And through the spirit, that made me automatically think about Revelation 6 and 4. How there went out another horse that was red, and how power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. And it went on to say how they should kill one another, and it was given unto him a great sword, which is the blessing of Esau Edom on the left-hand side. And with that sword, by the authority of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, who's going to be programming him, he's about to soon come down with great wrath because he knows that he has but a short time. So it says right here, internal emails show the FBI is instructing state and local police on how to enforce the president's crackdown on left-wing dissent. It says, FBI emails obtained by Zateo show that the Trump administration is pushing state and local police to target Americans with left-wing views, emails show. As Donald Trump's hot war in Iran enters its second month with no end in sight, a quieter, colder war is simmering on the home front. Its target is not a foreign power thousands of miles away, but U.S. citizens who disagree with the president and his hardline advisors. This domestic war's chief weapon is a National Security Presidential Memorandum, NSPM-7, which attempts to criminalize a laundry list of common left-wing beliefs and viewpoints. And with this current Middle East conflict with Iran, which is now labeled a ceasefire for about 2 weeks, was and is the perfect scenario or tactic that the so-called powers that be to use and justify for this domestic terrorism agenda, and where you're going to have a lot of people having mixed views and sharing their different sentiments upon social media. And these social media platforms is nothing but a snare within itself, dealing with all the tracking for these different ABC organizations, and where they are monitoring the people. And remember how Esau Edom is labeled as a serpent, and how he was more crafty and devious than any beast within the field. So again, this Middle Eastern conflict is the perfect tactic that he can use with this Strait of Hormuz ordeal, and it's forwarding more of a cost of living crisis within the U.S., where the rising prices of goods and services are skyrocketing. You have oil surges, just placing more economic straits upon the American people, especially the middle class of America. So by social media being at its peak right now, and social media is pretty much nowadays like a coping mechanism where people share all their sentiments, their public outcries, and even be crying and sharing their different outlooks or viewpoints, especially dealing with this current shattered economy. And who most of these people are blaming? DJ Trump, which is the same administration that's instituting this National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, which again is the largest counterterrorism spending in years, and it's dedicated to proactively hunt for Americans that the American government classifies as DTs, or domestic terrorists. All right, so right here it says, Trump's FBI is conducting trainings for state and local law enforcement officials on the president's NSPM 7 directive in order to help enlist them in the administration's ongoing crackdown on the left, emails show. And it's happening at the same time as Trump's war in Iran is throttling energy prices in the global economy, creating even more discontent with his administration. What this development means in practice is if you have criticized a corporation on social media, held a sign that demands ICE leave your city, share a meme about alleged United Healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione, or publicly condemn Trump's Iran war at a local town hall, both the federal government and your local police could take note and forward along a list of your thought crimes to the FBI for further review. Unlike a standard issue presidential directive that nudges a sector of the federal bureaucracy or realigns a federal agency towards the president's liking, national security directives target the entire intelligence and defense apparatus, which is why they are almost always classified. NSPM 7, which was published publicly by the White House in September, makes no effort to conceal its goals. The presidential directive is the most significant shift in domestic counterterrorism efforts since the Patriot Act was introduced into law in the wake of 9/11. The program is sweeping in its scope not only for the list of subversive activities it seeks to target, but also in the joint terrorism task forces it relies upon. So there you have it. And as you can see that Esau Edom is tapping into his left-handed enchantments, which is a part of his blessing on the left-hand side, the sword, by him being artful in his deception, and he's being cornered. And he's not used to this type of defense upon him. Because many centuries they could do something throughout the world, perpetuate all types of evil devices, atrocious schemes, create all types of international war crimes, and the list goes on, and he would go unchecked, unquestioned about it. But now we are within those times, within the movie of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua that we call life. And for the most part, within Esau's movies, what happens or transpires at the end? The truth comes out. The antagonist or the villain gets pointed out, and he loses at the end. So now Esau's being cornered by the truth, mainly from those two witnesses, which represents the elect of the nation of Israel out of the southern and the northern kingdom, which again represents the spirit of Yahushua's mouth, the servants, the prophets. And that third witness can go into these truthers, these whistleblowers. So by Esau being cornered against that wall with this truth, the only option that he has is to tap into his carnal nature. And that's the sword on the left-hand side. But through the spirit, we see the play. How this Trump's new Red Scare is coming to state and local police near you through the guise of left-wing dissent, or political divisions, or political turmoil, which is prophesied to happen and take place within these end times. And that takes me to 2 Esdras, the 15th chapter, within the GNT. And as you can see right here from the heading, the coming disasters. Let's get to the point in verse 14. The world and the people in it are doomed. The war that will bring their destruction is very near. Nations will arm themselves and fight against other nations. And that's where you have the concept of civil war, which is an infighting of organized groups within the same country or nation. And a civil war 2.0 is definitely brewing up through these chaotic times. Remember, order out of chaos. And here's the point, verse 16. There will be great political turmoil, with one group trying to overpower another and gain control while ignoring the legitimate government. And that political turmoil goes into a state of intense volatility, instability, strife, chaos, and disorder within a government or a nation. And that signifies a breakdown within national governance. And what they are prophesied to happen within these last times within America, pursuant to Isaiah 24:10, how the city of confusion, referencing to America, is broken down. And that can be from a moral aspect, a financial or economical aspect, and definitely a physical aspect. And that's going to automatically trigger off more uncertainty, more distress, more protesting, which is soon going to lead into more riots, more social unrest, and definitely insurrections, where the American public will challenge their so-called authorities. From these senators, governors, mayors, these local councilmen, police officers, and the list goes on. And the crazy thing about this, we're not going to have no fight in none of these activities because the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We're not going to be involved with the activities of these civilians. No, we're more so tapped into that spirit or that mindset of Yahushua, especially when you read John 18:36, when Yahushua stated, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then will my servants fight." But by default, Esau being a loser as he is, we will still get blamed for this. And again, that's a part of us through the spirit, mentally and spiritually counting the cost. And let's get right quick. 2 Maccabees, the 15th chapter, jump to verse 6. And it says right here, so Nicanor, he was a Syrian general within the Seleucid army, which was associated with the ancient Greek Empire. So Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him. But Maccabees had ever sure confidence that the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua will help him. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven. And that's why it's stated within Sirach or Ecclesiasticus chapter 2, verse 10, look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise and call upon him? So again, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua, and so comforting them out of the law and the prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles that they had won afore, he made them more cheerful. And that's where our hope and our faith lies at, through the diverse miracles of Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua. Because if they did this aforetime, how much more now within the end of Esau's rule, which is the last rule of the heathen? So through the spirit, we're not getting too worried or too caught up into Esau's smear campaign that he's going to bring very soon by persecuting us as enemies of the state or committing treason, which is a betrayal of one's allegiance towards his own country. And that's going to be charged against Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua's servants, the prophets, and also his other hopeful elect members or believers. So that concludes the lesson through the spirit. And hopefully with that, you all stay edified, you all stay strong, keep pushing forward. Shalom.